Hello, it's Amy, and I'm back again with the Journal of Emily Shore. This is the diary of a teenage girl living in the United Kingdom in the 1830s. And today we are beginning with the entry for July 9th, 1838, which was a Monday. Today we turned off from the Ringwood Road some time before to the Boldred Wood and perused a grassy track in a new direction, which Papa has lately discovered and explored. At last, when on an elevated open spot, covered with heath, gorse, and foxgloves, we suddenly plunged from the open light of day into the soft twilight of one of the most beautiful woods I ever saw. It consists chiefly of tall old beeches and is a kind of terrace, the steep shaded slopes of which are crimsoned with splendid foxgloves, and through the thick foliage of the foreground, dark and dusky with its denseness, we caught every now and then peeps and glimpses of the distant blue woods gleaming in sunshine. We lingered in this beautiful grove for some time, and then returned to the wild open heath and drove down a long, steep, difficult descent to a little to the right till we plunged into another wood in a hollow at the bottom. We left the carriage and wandered about. As in the other, it was radiant with a natural jewelry of foxgloves and sunbeams. July 14th, Saturday. Here is a query which I shall be able to answer decidedly at the end of this volume, most likely before. What is indicated by all these symptoms, this constant shortness of breath, this most harassing hard cough, this perpetual expectoration now tinged with blood, this quick pulse, this painfully craving appetite, which very little satisfies even to disgust, these restless, feverish nights, continual palpitations of the heart, and deep, circumcised flushes. Is it consumption really come at last after so many threatenings? I am not taken by surprise, for I have had it steadily almost daily in view for 2 years, and have always known that my lungs were delicate. I feel no uneasiness on the subject, even if my ideas, I cannot call them fears, prove right. It must be my business to prepare for another world. May God give me grace to do so. July 15, Sunday. I read this afternoon, besides the lesson for the day, 1 Samuel, and I cannot understand why in verse 18 David is described as a mighty valiant man of war, at a time when he was but a stripling who took care of the sheep, as is mentioned too in the next chapter. It is nearly 8 o'clock, and I have been alone for the last hour, for all the rest, how I envy them, are gone to enjoy a walk in the forest. 8 o'clock. Little grey clouds tinged with pink are floating across the southwest sky, all the forest in shadow. Oh, here they come, merry voices, not like mine, for it is a great effort to me to speak at all, and often difficult to utter a few words audibly. July 16th, Monday. I amused myself in bed with some of Scott's lesser poems, and reading The Poacher for the first time, was surprised to find that the scene is laid in the New Forest, and that Malwood is even mentioned by name. But I take leave to doubt whether Scott knew anything of the scenery by personal inspection, for he would not have talked of a sea of birches and copses of hazel. I do not believe a hazel is to be seen throughout the whole extent of the New Forest, and sure am I that it is only in some parts you can find here and there, a straggling birch. It is dangerous to attempt describing country you have not seen. It is painful, however, to be the object of such constant care and anxiety to my parents, especially my poor father, who has harassment enough in his wearing profession, without my innocently adding to it. It is impossible to describe how he watches me, and how, without being fidgety, he catches at any glimpse of being better. I am sure there never was such an affectionate father. July 18th, Wednesday. I must not forget that in the lovely bit of forest I mentioned, there is a stream choked with trees and spotted with yellow water lilies, around which the ground is boggy and completely covered with a profusion of low, shrubby plant, which I never saw before. Papa gathered me a bit, and I found it to be very sweet-scented, though out of flower. I brought it home with the rather hopeless intention of ascertaining its name. Oddly enough, I remembered that in Crabbe's Birth of Flattery, which I read the other day, there occurs the line, "Gale from the bog shall yield Arabian balm," with a note to explain that this was a plant called Murica Gale. Somehow I thought this might by chance be my plant, so I looked for the name in the index to withering and found the description exactly agreed, except that as it was out of bloom, I could not examine the flower. I make no doubt it is the same. In English, it is called sweet gale, sweet willow, or Dutch myrtle. And then we have in brackets here an editor's note. From February 1838 to the present date, July 20, the journal is very largely occupied with the return to England after 6 years' absence of the very oldest and dearest friend that the writer had, but this return was under such melancholy circumstances, and the expressions of love, pain, and pity during the expectation and at the reunion are almost monotonous and so mixed up with morbid depression from the poor journalist's own sinking health that it has been thought better to omit the whole of this subject, which takes up pages on pages, save a passing word or two. End of the editor's note. July 20th, Friday. The dream is over, the long dream of absence, how short it now appears, and Eliz is restored to us at last. Alas, how little we all thought that this would be the awakening. July 23rd. Our favourite Mr. Howard arrived late at night after most of the house were gone to bed. July 24th, Tuesday. Mr. Howard made his appearance when everybody had done breakfast. I was very glad to see him, which I have not done for 2 years. He has just the same amiable, thoughtful countenance, and the most simple, pleasing, unaffected manner as ever. He has just been at court, and says that the Queen is a pretty pleasing girl, and very graceful. While Papa and Mr. Howard went in the afternoon to call on the Paultons, on the Romsey Road, another party of us took a lounge in the forest amidst the glades near Minstead. I rode the pony. Mamma, Eliz, Arthur, and my sisters walked. I enjoyed it very much, and my spirits were all the better for it. Arthur enters delightfully into the beauties of the forest, and so indeed does Mr. Howard. This ramble, I fear, has occasioned me a loss I feel bitterly. The little cross of Gibraltar Rock, given me by Mary Warren, the only keepsake I have of her, I missed it just after dinner from the chain at which I wear it. I searched vainly for it over the house. I have not an ornament I could not better spare, and it has saddened me all the evening. What share the weaknesses of my bodily health has in it, I cannot say, but I feel myself sinking into a gloom and melancholy I cannot describe. I have a sort of hermit-like misanthropic feeling. I fly to my own room as much as possible. I am quite pining for entire quiet. I have more constant depression of spirits than I have ever known before, and seem to have lost all interest in my occupations. I feel almost as if I shall soon have done with this world, and as if my studying days were quite over, and as if I had no longer any interest in the busy scenes of life. In this mood, all other circumstances touch me and harness me much more than before, especially the state of my father's health, and all he is continually undergoing from the toils and anxieties of his wearying profession. I am much pleased to see the good effects the presence of Arthur and Mr. Howard have on Papa. He delights to show them the forest, as well as to converse with them, which he does as with brothers, for I think we have no two friends with whom we are on such intimate terms. Papa is roused and animated by them, and the exercise he takes with them improves his health. July 25th, Wednesday. The first thing that I was saluted with in the morning was my recovered Gibraltar Rock cross. The bustle in the house distracts me. I enjoy one thing, and that is to listen to the conversation of Papa, Arthur, and Mr. Howard. And maybe we'll leave it there for today because we're just about at the 10-minute mark. So her cross necklace was recovered. It's too bad. It's too bad she doesn't describe to us where, when, and how. Whether someone, went back to the forest to look for it, whether it was discovered in some part of the house, or whether, it was out on the path. Who knows, but at least she got it back. But as I said, we'll leave it at that for today.